The hall of the Galactic Sovereign. Assembly stretched higher than any building on Earth. Its walls were carved from black crystal that seemed to swallow light. And floating platforms held delegates from over 800 different species. Some had scales. Some had tentacles. Some existed as pure energy contained in magnetic fields. All of them looked down at the small platform in the center of the chamber, where 4 humans stood alone. Ambassador James O'Dara kept his back straight and his face calm. Beside him stood Commander Nadia Volkov, her military uniform crisp despite the sweat on her palms. Behind them waited Dr. Felix Brennan, humanity's greatest cryptographer, and a woman called simply Ruth, whose official title was Cultural Advisor, but whose real job was something far more dangerous. The silence in the chamber was complete. 800 species held their breath. High Chancellor Morith of the Velkai Imperium rose from his throne at the highest point of the chamber. He was 12 feet tall, with skin like polished obsidian and 6 eyes that glowed with cold blue light. When he spoke, his voice echoed through translation devices implanted in every delegate's mind. Humans of the Sol System, you have been brought before this assembly to answer for crimes against galactic peace. You are accused of infiltrating the communication networks of 17 sovereign species. You are accused of stealing classified intelligence from the Velkai Imperial Archive. You are accused of placing agents within our most secure facilities. A wave of angry sounds passed through the chamber. Clicks and hisses and howls of outrage from species that had never agreed on anything except their hatred of these newcomers. Morith raised one massive hand, and silence returned instantly. The penalty for such crimes is absolute. Your homeworld will be sterilized. Your colonies will be destroyed. Your species will be erased from the galactic record. You will be forgotten. Ambassador O'Dara did not move. He did not blink. He simply waited. Do you deny these accusations? Morith demanded. O'Dara took one step forward. His voice, when he spoke, carried clearly through the chamber, despite being barely above a whisper. No, High Chancellor. We do not deny them. The chamber erupted. Delegates screamed for immediate execution. Energy weapons powered up in the hands of guards stationed around the platform. Commander Volkov's hand moved toward her sidearm before she caught herself, but O'Dara raised his hand, and somehow, impossibly, the chaos began to quiet. Perhaps it was the complete lack of fear in his eyes. Perhaps it was the small smile that appeared on his face. We did everything you have accused us of, O'Dara continued. We infiltrated your networks. We stole your secrets. We placed our agents among you. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. But we did not do this as an act of war. We did this as an act of survival. Morith's 6 eyes narrowed. Explain yourself, human. 14 months ago, a member of your own species came to Earth. He was dying. Before his death, he gave us a recording. O'Dara reached into his coat and withdrew a small crystal device. A recording of a secret session of this very assembly, in which you voted unanimously to exterminate humanity. The silence that followed was different from before. It was the silence of 1,000 beings suddenly holding their breath. Not because we threatened you, O'Dara continued. Not because we violated your laws, but because you were afraid. Afraid of what we might become. Afraid of our potential. Morith slammed his fist against his throne, cracking the ancient stone. Lies. This is fabrication. Is it? O'Dara activated the crystal. A holographic recording appeared above the platform, showing this very chamber filled with delegates. Morith's own voice echoed through the hall, speaking words that made every species present go still. The humans breed too quickly. They adapt too fast. They learn our technologies in years rather than centuries. If we allow them to continue, They will surpass us within 3 generations. The only solution is total elimination. The recording showed the vote. Every delegate present had approved. Every single one. Odera let the recording play for 30 seconds longer and shut it off. The chamber was utterly silent. Delegates who had been screaming for human blood moments ago now looked at their neighbors with suspicion and fear. "We came here today not to beg for mercy," Odera said. "We came here to deliver a message. In exactly 90 seconds, a data package will be transmitted to every world represented in this chamber. That package contains evidence of every secret crime this assembly has committed for the past 500 years. Every species you exterminated. Every resource you stole. Every genocide you covered up." Guards rushed toward the platform. Energy weapons aimed at Audra's head. "Kill us if you wish," Odera said calmly. "The transmission is already uploading from a location you will never find. And there is something else you should know." The lights in the chamber flickered once, twice, 3 times. "While you have been sitting here, planning our death, Terran intelligence operatives have been executing simultaneous operations on 31 worlds across the galaxy. We have not come to destroy you. We have come to expose you. Every lie, every crime, every secret." High Chancellor Morith's composure finally broke. "What have you done?" Odera checked a small device on his wrist. The indicator light turned green. Operation Sunrise began 4 minutes ago. By the time your fleets reach Earth, you will no longer have fleets. By the time you call for our destruction, your own people will be calling for yours." He looked up at the 800 species assembled above him, and for the first time, he allowed his voice to rise. "Humanity did not come to the stars to be slaughtered. We did not build our civilization for 1,000 generations, only to be erased by those who feared our potential. You wanted to destroy us in secret. We have chosen to expose you in the light." Commander Volkov stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with her ambassador. Behind them, Dr. Brennan and Ruth held their ground, their faces set with grim determination. "You have one choice now," Odera concluded. "Face what you have done. Answer for your crimes. Or watch your empire burn as every species you have wronged rises up against you." The transmission indicator pulsed steadily, sending humanity's evidence to 1 trillion watching eyes across the galaxy. The truth was spreading. On the Throneworld, in the heart of galactic power, 4 humans stood surrounded by enemies. They had no weapons. They had no fleet. They had only information, courage, and a plan 3 years in the making. And as chaos erupted in the chamber, as delegates fled to contact their homeworlds, as High Chancellor Morith screamed orders that no one obeyed, Ambassador James Odera allowed himself one small moment of satisfaction. The war for humanity's survival had just begun, but for the first time since they reached the stars, humans were not running. They were fighting back. 14 months before the confrontation in the assembly chamber, Director Anna Kruger stood in a sterile room beneath the surface of Earth's moon. Before her, on a medical table, lay the body of an alien who had died bringing humanity a warning. The Velkai defector had arrived in a stolen escape pod, radiation poisoning eating through his organs. He had lived just long enough to speak 3 sentences before his heart stopped beating. "They have voted to kill you all. The recording is in my skull. Do not let my death be meaningless." The surgeons had extracted a crystal the size of a fingernail from his brain. When Kruger played it, she heard the voice of High Chancellor Morith condemning humanity to extinction. She heard 800 species agree without a single objection. She played the recording 17 times. Then she locked herself in her office and did not emerge for 3 days. When she finally came out, her hair had turned gray at the temples, but her eyes held something new, something dangerous, Purpose. Get me the best operatives on Earth, she told her assistant. We are going to war, but not the kind they expect. The team assembled over the following months. Each member was chosen for specific skills that no other human possessed. James O'Dara had spent 20 years as a diplomat, negotiating peace between nations that had been enemies for centuries. He could read a room better than any machine. He could find weakness in the strongest opponent. More importantly, he could speak truth in a way that made it impossible to ignore. Commander Nadia Volkov had defended the Mars colony during the Silenthy incursion 3 years earlier. She was the only human commander who had ever defeated an alien force in direct combat. She had done it with half the soldiers and a tenth of the weapons, using tactics that the Silenthy still did not understand. Dr. Felix Brennan was the man who had cracked the Velkai encryption system. The galactic community believed their codes were unbreakable. Brennan had broken them in 6 months, working alone in a basement laboratory, with equipment held together by tape and determination. Ruth was different. Ruth had no last name in any official record. She had no history that could be verified. What she had was the ability to become anyone, anywhere. She could walk into a room as one person and walk out as another. She could learn an alien language in days and speak it without accent in weeks. Director Kruger gathered them in an underground bunker and told them the truth. The galaxy has decided we should not exist. They are building a fleet in secret. In approximately 18 months, they will come to sterilize Earth and every human colony. There will be no warning. There will be no negotiation. We will simply cease to be. She watched their faces as they absorbed this information. O'Dara went pale. Volkov's hands curled into fists. Brennan closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Only Ruth showed no visible reaction. Our military cannot stop them, Kruger continued. Their fleet outnumbers ours by a factor of 1,000. Their technology is centuries ahead. In a direct confrontation, we would last approximately 4 hours. Then what do we do? Volkov asked. Kruger smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. We do what humans have always done when facing impossible odds. We fight smarter. We have 18 months to infiltrate the most powerful government in galactic history, to steal their secrets, to find evidence of their crimes. And when the time is right, we expose everything. The operation was called Sunrise. For the next year, the team prepared. Brennan developed new encryption-breaking tools that could slice through alien security systems like a blade through water. He discovered something that changed everything. The Velkai were brilliant, but they thought in straight lines. Their security was designed to stop logical attacks. What they never anticipated was the chaos of human intuition, the ability to make leaps of logic that no algorithm could predict. Ruth underwent a transformation procedure that allowed her to physically appear as a member of the Corvani species, one of the founding races of the Galactic Assembly. The process took 3 months and nearly killed her twice. When it was complete, she could move among the galaxy's elite without suspicion. Volkov trained a network of backup operatives, spreading them across human colonies with false identities and hidden equipment. If the primary team failed, these agents would continue the mission. O'Dara studied. He memorized the political structures of every major species. He learned their histories, their fears, their shamas. He understood that the assembly was not as unified as it appeared. Old grudges simmered beneath the surface. Species that smiled at each other in public sharpened knives in private. This was humanity's weapon. Not guns. Not ships. Information. 6 months before the planned extermination date, the team departed Earth. Ruth traveled to the Throneworld itself, the seat of galactic power. Her mission was to access the Central Archive, where every secret the Assembly had ever buried was kept. She arrived as a Corvani diplomatic aide and spent months building trust, becoming valued, becoming invisible in the way that servants always are. Brennan infiltrated the Velkai homeworld as a technology consultant. His target was the Assembly's primary communication network. If he could plant a backdoor in their system, Terran intelligence would be able to see everything they planned. Velkov posed as a weapons merchant on Crothian Prime. A fortress world where the secret extermination fleet was being built. She needed proof, deployment orders, construction schedules, evidence that could not be denied. Odera traveled openly as a diplomatic representative to a dozen minor worlds. He was a distraction, drawing attention while his teammates worked in shadow. But he was also laying groundwork, making contacts, planting seeds of doubt among species who secretly feared the Assembly's power. Director Kruger remained on Earth, coordinating everything through encrypted channels that the galaxy believed did not exist. As the months passed, reports came in. Ruth had accessed the outer layers of the archive and found evidence of 17 species, exterminated over the past 500 years. Brennan had nearly completed his backdoor, working at night while his Velkai hosts slept. Volkov had obtained partial fleet deployment orders, confirming that the attack on Earth was scheduled for the spring equinox. But something else emerged from the intelligence. Something worse. The Assembly had done this before. Many times. Any species that showed too much potential, that adapted too quickly, that threatened the established order, was quietly eliminated. Humanity was not special. They were simply the latest target in a cycle of genocide that had continued for millennia. Kruger read the reports with steady hands and cold eyes. Then she sent a single message to her operatives. Proceed to final phase. We expose everything. We show the galaxy what its masters really are. The pieces were in place. The clock was running. In 14 days, Ambassador Odera would stand before the Assembly and speak words that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. In the darkness of space, humanity prepared to light a fire that could not be extinguished. They had learned the galaxy's greatest secret. Now they would share it with everyone. Ruth moved through the corridors of the Throneworld's administrative complex with the careful grace of someone who belonged. Her Corvani disguise was perfect, down to the subtle color shifts in her manufactured scales that indicated calm professionalism. For 8 months, she had been exactly what she appeared to be, a reliable, unremarkable junior aide in a diplomatic course. Tonight, that ended. The Festival of Unity had emptied the complex. Every official of importance was attending the ceremony in the Grand Plaza, watching fireworks that painted the alien sky in colors humans had never named. Security was reduced to skeleton crews. Cameras pointed at empty hallways. Ruth slipped through a maintenance door that her access codes should not have opened. Brennan had done his work well. The Velkai security protocols recognized her as a high-level systems administrator now, thanks to code injections so subtle that no one would ever trace them. The central archive lay 3 levels below the surface, protected by doors that could withstand orbital bombardment and guards trained to kill without hesitation. Ruth reached the first checkpoint and held her breath as the scanner passed over her face. Green light. Access granted. 2 more checkpoints. 2 more held breaths. 2 more green lights. The archive itself was smaller than she expected. A circular room lined with crystal storage matrices, each one containing centuries of secrets. Ruth inserted the extraction device Brainon, had built and began the download. 17 minutes. That was how long the device needed to copy everything. She watched the progress indicator climb. 10%. 20, 30. At 42%. She heard footsteps behind her. Ruth turned slowly, her hand moving toward the weapon hidden beneath her robes. A figure stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light of the corridor beyond. It was not Corvani. It was not any species Ruth had ever seen. "You should not be here," the figure said. Her voice was musical, like wind chimes made of glass. "Neither should I." Ruth did not move. "Who are you?" The stranger stepped forward into the light. She was humanoid, but wrong in subtle ways. Her skin was too smooth, her joints bent at odd angles. Her eyes were entirely black, with no visible iris or pupil. "My name is Excel. I am the last of the Mathari." Ruth's blood went cold. The Mathari were listed in the archive as an extinct species, wiped out by the Assembly 600 years ago for the crime of developing faster than light, traveled before they were deemed ready. You survived. I survived. I have been waiting here for decades, hidden in places your assembly forgot existed. Excel moved closer, her movements too fluid to be natural. I have been waiting for someone to do what you are doing now. The extraction device showed 58% complete. Why reveal yourself? Ruth asked. You could have taken what you wanted yourself. I do not have your technology. Brennan is brilliant, truly. The way he broke their encryption. Excel smiled, showing teeth that were slightly too sharp. I have been watching you for months. All of you. Your people are remarkable. 67%. You knew about our operation? I know many things. I know the Assembly plans to destroy your world. I know you plan to expose their crimes. I know you will succeed. Excel paused. I also know what happens next. Tell me. They will not surrender quietly. When your transmission reaches the galaxy, the Assembly will strike at Earth with everything they have. Your evidence will mean nothing if your species is dead. Ruth felt her heart racing beneath her disguised chest. We have plans. Plans can fail. The fleet they are building is larger than you know. Your commander Volkov obtained partial deployment orders. The real numbers are 3 times higher, 81%. What do you want? Ruth demanded. Excel reached into her cloak and withdrew a small crystal, identical to the one Ruth was using for extraction. Take this. It contains access codes to the Assembly's oldest security systems. Weapons placed throughout the galaxy centuries ago to prevent any species from becoming too powerful. With these codes, you can turn their own weapons against them. Why would you give us this? Because my people are dead. Because I have spent 600 years alone, watching the Assembly murder anyone who threatens their power. Because I am tired of hiding. Excel pressed the crystal into Ruth's hand. And because I believe your species might actually win. 93%. Alarms began to sound in the distance. They have detected the extraction, Excel said calmly. There is a passage behind the 3rd storage matrix. It leads to the old construction tunnels. Follow them for 2 kilometers, and you will emerge in the maintenance district. From there, you can reach the spaceport. Come with me. Excel shook her head. I have one more task to complete. The fail-safe weapons I mentioned require a neural key to activate. My neural key. When the time comes, I will use it. That will kill you. Yes, Excel smiled again, and this time there was peace in her expression. But my people will finally be avenged, and yours will survive. That is enough. 100%. Download complete. Ruth grabbed the extraction device as the first guards burst through the archive doors. She fired twice, dropping 2 of them, then dove behind a storage matrix as energy bolts tore through the air where she had been standing. When she looked back, Excel was gone, vanished into shadows that should not have been deep enough to hide anyone. Ruth ran. The tunnels were exactly where Excel had said. 2 kilometers of ancient stone and forgotten machinery, built by species that no longer existed. Ruth emerged in a district filled with smoke and noise. where no one looked twice at a Corvani aide hurrying toward the spaceport. She made it to her hidden ship with minutes to spare before the planetary lockdown began. As she broke orbit, her communication device crackled with an encoded message from Director Kruger. Brennan's backdoor is active. Volkov has the fleet deployment data. Odera is in position. What is your status? Ruth looked at the two crystals in her hand. The extraction device containing every secret the assembly had ever buried. And Ixal's gift containing the power to turn their own weapons against them. Mission complete, she replied. And I have something extra. Something that changes everything. She set course for the rendezvous point, where the pieces of Operation Sunrise would finally come together. Behind her, the Throneworld grew smaller in her view screen. Somewhere down there, Ixal was waiting, the last survivor of a murdered species, preparing to sacrifice herself for people she had never met. Ruth had been an operative for 15 years. She had done terrible things in the name of humanity's survival. She had never questioned whether it was worth it. Now, holding evidence of 17 genocides in one hand and the hope of vengeance in the other, she understood something she had not understood before. This was not just about survival. This was about justice. And humanity was about to deliver it. The assemblies. Response came faster than anyone expected. Within hours of Ruth's escape from the Throneworld, High Chancellor Morith declared a state of emergency. Every communication channel in the galaxy carried his message. Humanity had committed an act of war. All human vessels were to be destroyed on sight. All human colonies were to be considered hostile territory. The secret extermination fleet received new orders. They would launch immediately, 3 months ahead of schedule. Earth would burn before the humans could use whatever they had stolen. On Crothian Prime, Commander Nadia Volkov received the news while hiding in a warehouse filled with weapons she had pretended to be selling. Her cover was still intact, but it would not matter. The fleet deployment data she carried was useless if the fleet reached Earth before she could deliver it. She contacted Director Kruger through an emergency channel. The timeline has collapsed. The fleet launches in 72 hours. Kruger's response was immediate. Can you delay them? Volkov looked at the weapons surrounding her. Enough firepower to start a small war, but nothing that could stop an extermination fleet. No, but I can make them angry enough to chase me, instead of heading straight to Earth. That is suicide. That is my job. She cut the connection before Kruger could argue. 12 hours later, Volkov stole a Crothian assault cruiser from the primary shipyard. She did not bother with stealth. She wanted them to see her. She wanted them to follow. The Crothian fleet commander, a veteran named Gareth the Unbroken, watched the stolen cruiser tear through his defensive perimeter and immediately ordered 6 vessels to pursue. His pride would not allow a human thief to escape unpunished. Volkov led them on a chase through 3 star systems, always staying just ahead, always letting them think they were about to catch her. Every hour she bought was another hour for her teammates to complete their missions. On the Velkai homeworld, Dr. Felix Brennan faced his own crisis. The Velkai had detected anomalies in their communication network. They did not know what Brennan had done, but they knew something was wrong. Security forces began interrogating every non-Velkai on the planet. Brennan's turn came at midnight. They strapped him into a chair designed for Velkai anatomy, which meant it cut into his human flesh at every joint. A telepath entered the room, 6 eyes glowing with concentrated attention. You will open your mind to me, human. You will show me what you have done. Brennan had prepared for this possibility. He had spent months building a technique he called partition thinking. His surface mind contained only innocent memories. Arriving on the planet, consulting on agricultural technology, missing his home. Beneath that surface, his true self waited, Hidden behind walls of meaningless data, the telepath pushed. Brennan felt pressure behind his eyes, like fingers reaching into his skull. He let the memories flow, the harmless ones, the boring ones. A childhood dog, a college lecture, the taste of his mother's cooking. There is nothing here, the telepath said, confused. This human is exactly what he appears to be. The security officer was not satisfied. Probe deeper. The telepath tried, and tried again. For 4 hours, they attempted to break through Brennan's mental defenses. He sweated. He bled. He never broke. Finally, exhausted and frustrated, they released him. Return to your quarters, human. Do not leave the residential compound. Brennan walked out on shaking legs. His neural implant was still intact. The back door he had planted was still active. And now, with the security forces focused on interrogation rather than network monitoring, he had an opportunity. He returned to his quarters and activated the implant. Director Kruger, this is Brennan. Back door is operational. I can see everything. What about the fleet targeting data? Brennan accessed the Velkai communication network and found what he was looking for. The extermination fleet's navigation system was linked to the same network he had infiltrated. With a few keystrokes, he could redirect them. But redirecting an entire fleet would reveal his presence. They would know someone had accessed their systems. They would trace it back to him. He would never leave this planet. Alive. Brennan thought about Earth, about his sister and her children, about the parks where he used to walk and the coffee shops where he used to read, about 7 billion people who would die if he did nothing. He made his choice. I can redirect the fleet, he told Kruger, but I will be captured immediately after. Felix, no. We can find another way. There is no other way. This is what I came here to do. He paused. Tell my family I love them. Tell them I did something that mattered. Before Kruger could respond, he cut the connection. His fingers moved across the interface, rewriting targeting coordinates, changing destination codes. The extermination fleet was now programmed to head not toward Earth, but toward the Throneworld itself. Let them explain why their own weapons were aimed at their own capital. Alarms screamed throughout the facility. Brennan heard boots pounding in the corridor outside. He had seconds left. He opened one final channel, not to Kruger, but to Ambassador Odera, waiting on a diplomatic vessel near the assembly headquarters. James, the fleet is redirected. They will have to defend the throne world instead of attacking Earth. You have your window. Felix, what have you done? What was necessary? Finish this. For all of us. The door exploded inward. Velkai security forces swarmed the room. Brennan did not resist as they dragged him from his chair. In the space above Crothian Prime, Volkov's stolen cruiser finally ran out of tricks. Enemy fire tore through her engines, her shields, her hull. She ejected in an escape pod seconds before the ship exploded, but the pod was captured immediately. 2 operatives down, but the mission continued. On the throne world, Excel watched from the shadows as panic spread through the halls of power. Reports flooded in. The extermination fleet was heading toward them. The human operatives had done something impossible. The assembly's own weapons were turning against it. She felt something she had not felt in 600 years. Hope. On her hidden vessel, Ruth received the news of Brennan's capture and Volkov's loss. She wept for them briefly, then composed herself and continued toward the rendezvous point. There was no turning back now. Ambassador Odera stood at the viewport of his diplomatic vessel, watching the chaos unfold in the space around the assembly headquarters. Ships scrambled in every direction. Communication channels overflowed with panicked transmissions. He straightened his collar and took a deep breath. Time to finish this, he said to no one. His vessel changed course, heading directly for the assembly chamber, where the fate of humanity would be decided. The final act was about to begin.